People. I hope you learn a lot today. I hope you enjoy, and I hope you feel inspired by these stories. What?
Microphone!
Yeah. Here,
Where's my microphone?
There.
Nothing.
You happy now? Thank you.
Not like they couldn't hear you anyway.
Suddenly I felt naked.
Well, thanks everyone for coming. This is amazing. So I'll do a quick introduction on my end, and then I'm going to pass it down. My name is Matthew. I run a small nonprofit organization called Esther's Echo. You may have heard a fundraiser going on about that, but we'll get into that in a second. About a year ago, I started realizing how much the Star Trek universe had really inspired a lot of the nonprofit work that I was doing. And I thought, there's got to be other people out there in the world who are doing work, either casts, but also fans, that is inspired by Star Trek. And there's so much social capital within the fandom, but also in communities like this. What if we could aim it for good? What if we could share the work that people are doing, like up here, and how can we all help each other to make that future that we see celebrated in Star Trek more like the present? Let's actually do that. And I'm of the firm belief that in our fandom, that's maybe the most important thing that we could actually do. And so I'm so excited to be on the stage with all these wonderful people. And maybe we'll kind of just start with Heather, and we'll kind of work our way down, and then we'll have some quick chats about all the work that we're doing. And I also want to hear from people in the audience, so if you've got work going on too, we'll talk about that as well. So Heather, you want to take it away?
Okay, hi everybody. So I'm Heather Ray, Batleth Babe on social media. You might know me that way. And Star Trek saved my life. About 5 years ago, I was in a really bad situation and had no money, had to get out of that. And someone said, why don't you start a GoFundMe so that we can help you out? And the Star Trek community basically kept me safe from someone that may have taken my life. Thank you for that, because many of you that did that are in this audience, and I appreciate it so much. I wanted to pay it forward. There's no way that I was going to pay back the money that was raised to keep me safe, so I thought, how could I do that? And so I started basically sending out a call to fandom to say, hey, who's got Trekkie stuff that they don't need anymore? Who's got action figures and books? So that I can send that to fans that don't have access to Trekkie stuff, because I know everyone here probably has some, Trek toys, something in their house, but there are people out there that can't afford to go to conventions and can't afford to participate in Trek fandom the way that we get to. It is truly a privilege. So I just basically rely on the generosity of the fan community to send me stuff that I send out to fans in need. And then I've also done some fundraisers where I raise money to help people watch Star Trek, since it's behind a paywall these days. And I've helped over 100 fans get to watch Star Trek so far. So I am just a fan. I'm not one of these amazing actors out here, but it is the fans. We are the change. We need to be the change that we want to see in the world. So I am just finding a way to pay it forward and put that kindness back out as a fan.
Awesome. And Heather, have you? Yeah, that's awesome. Heather, have you what have people expressed back to you after they've had those access barriers kind of removed, so they can participate in the community in that way?
You wouldn't think that just having a little piece of Star Trek would make you feel more of a part of fandom, but it really does. I don't think that we realize we get to come to conventions and be with our Trek family. I think we sometimes forget how isolating it can be when you're not in a place where you're close to other Trekkies. And so people feel like they are more a part of Trek fandom, and then the people who get to watch Star Trek just are really happy to get to watch Star Trek. And then they're more likely, when they can, to find ways to watch it in the future. So it's been really great and positive, and getting to prepare boxes of Star Trek goodies to send to people is such a fun thing for me to do. But then when they're sending me pictures of the stuff they got, it's just a really positive experience overall.
What I love about that is that I think often when we feel like we want to make change happen in the world, we think it has to involve a giant infrastructure, board of directors, or a large organization, and that can be very onerous to set up. But this is something you managed to do on your own.
It's just me.
Make it
It's
happen.
just me.
Yeah.
I just do good things for the community, and I hope that inspires other people to do the same thing, because you don't have to be a celebrity. You don't have to have access. You can just pay it forward by being a kind person in the world.
That's awesome. Thank you, Heather. That's awesome. Chris.
Hi.
Hey.
Sorry. You got downgraded to me from Chase. This is how she looks after a long week in Vegas.
Couldn't tell. Couldn't
A
tell.
little rough. So why am I here? Because Chase got double booked. However, I've worked with Chase for years, and my story, my Star Trek origination story, is that years ago, out of college, I was a policeman in Chicago. And I worked deep cover narcotics and gang crime. And fascinating, interesting job. And a week after I'm married, someone I'm working a narcotics case on tries to kill my wife. She protested the situation and inquired if I might want to switch careers. So I went to the YMCA as a career and have never looked back, and really have had a wonderful, wonderful career with the Y. I run all the Ys from Denver north up to Cheyenne, Wyoming. And Chase and I are working on a thing called Pop Culture Hero Coalition. Thank you. And what that is it's a social emotional learning program that we're putting in schools and before and after school YMCA programs, day camps, resident camps, things like that. But it uses the proxy theory of social emotional learning. So in other words, with children, they have a very hard time accessing their feelings and emotions. And so what they do is we take pop culture stories like Supergirl. We'll use Supergirl to talk about identity because she has a hidden identity. She has a secret identity that she has a very hard time revealing, so kids can relate to that. Or they have a hard time accessing the words around death, but they can talk all day long about Harry Potter's parents dying or Batman's parents dying or things like that. So we try and pull that out and use it. And I skipped the part of where Star Trek was important to me. So when I was a policeman, it was Next Generation was on at the time, was coming out. And after a horrible, horrible day, I would look forward to that. To go home and just, because I grew up on the original series, and so going home and saying, oh my God, here's something I can look forward to. Here's how the world will absolutely be at some point. Just not there yet, but you can look forward to it. And we see it, right? We see it all the time. And I work with children and youth, and I have no fear for the future. I really don't, because I work with kids every day, and I see the growth and the change and how we're progressing forward. And so what I'd ask is that go to Pop Culture Hero Coalition webpage, look at it. We tested it for efficacy in 160 cities over the past 2 years.
Wow.
And we did a statistical analysis, and children learn from this program at least a minimum of 2 points of social emotional learning. And then we have written for a grant that hopefully we'll find out in October. We can put it in 10,000 cities across the United States if this grant.
Amazing.
And that all came from one person having an idea and making it happen, and that's how everything happens in this world.
Yeah. I had the pleasure of, I met Chase in person for the first time at STLV 2015. And I didn't know about Pop Culture Hero Coalition until that time. But it was when I sat down with her and we had this talk about pop culture, I was like, that's when I started thinking about how we should be having more conversations like this, because she was one of the first clear examples I could think of a cast member from the show who had taken on this initiative. And if people haven't seen Chase's TED Talk, it's awesome. So Chase has a TED Talk online where she talks about the formation of the organization. It's a very inspiring talk. She gets very vulnerable about her experiences after and even during working on Star Trek and some of the harassment that she faced, which was part of the inspiration for creating the organization as well.
I teach leadership at the University of Colorado Boulder, and just one class each semester because I have a real job. But what she came and spoke one time to my students, and they all gathered around her and huddled and wanted to hear her story, and she really is a phenomenal speaker.
Awesome.
It's very inspirational.
Thank you very much. So Pop Culture Hero Coalition. I want to check it out for sure. David, hello.
Hi.
And I actually don't know about your adventure here on stage, so
Well,
I would love
first
to
of
hear.
all, I want to talk about this idea of the individual, because for Chase and for Heather and for another guy who had this vision of a positive vision of humanity. And we're all here because of that
That's right.
one guy's concept and idea. And Heather talked about paying it forward, and Chase, who worked on Deep Space Nine, about what she did as an individual to be able to do what they did. You're all individuals out there. Look what all of you could possibly do as well. I'm fortunate to be part of the Hollywood Food Coalition. I'm on the board of directors with John, and I'm with a group. And it's a lot easier to operate within the group because it's all sort of there and structured. But can you imagine what it took for Heather to develop all that she did? It's really an extraordinary accomplishment, but it proves that everybody can do that. So kudos to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to Jean. It's extraordinary. But on the Hollywood Food Coalition, we are a service organization in Los Angeles who feed and provide services to the homeless. We also have a part of our organization which actually collects food and redistributes it around the Los Angeles area. So it's an extraordinary organization, and anybody who's interested in it, I have my business card here. You can pick one up afterwards, and it'll give you my email. You can contact us at any time. John, I know, will speak at length, I hope, about the organization. But we have something called Trek Talks, which we did in last January. We're going to have it again in January of 2023, in which we have a whole cohort of Star Trek luminaries talking about the Hollywood Food Coalition and charities of their want. I also want to mention another charity which is very close to my heart, and that's the MS Society. My wife Dorothy is in the audience, and she has, Dorothy, stand up and give a wave.
Yeah, Dorothy!
There's Dorothy. Dorothy is very reticent to talk about her disease, but she made a point of saying, you may talk about MS and my struggle at the panel if you'd like. So she gave me permission to do that. And there's currently, the estimate is about 1 million people in the United States who have MS. It's an incurable disease. There are disease-modifying drugs, but anything that anybody can do to support the MS Society and the Hollywood Food Coalition would be gratefully appreciated. So with that,
Thank you, David.
you're welcome.
Thank you so much. Mr. John Billingsley. Hello.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I was the chairman of the board of the Hollywood Food Coalition for a number of years, and I will talk about it a bit more, but David gave you the basic skinny about what we do. 37 years old, serve a hot multi-course meal to all comers 7 nights a week, provide access to medical care, housing, mental health services. We hand out shoes and backpacks, laundry vouchers, toiletry kits, you name it. And we rescue about 2 million pounds of food a year, which we share with about 100 other not-for-profits to help augment and buttress their meal programs. So we work with battered women's shelters, we work with the veterans, we work with church groups. We're completely non-denominational. There's no rules, there's no regulations in terms of what you have to do to merit getting a good meal. Everybody who's hungry, step right up. Terrific organization. Trek Talks, so happy and proud that when we tried last year to get folks in the Star Trek community to participate in this event, every single person we asked said yes, which I thought was so reflective of the spirit.
Amazing cast lineup for that one.
Yeah, but I also want to kind of tack on a bit, because would you raise your hand if you are currently involved in some kind of social service organization, charitable organization, if you give to a charity, if you volunteer for a church group, if you volunteer for any kind of organization? I see very few hands not up, which is one thing I really always want to say, because I have found myself on many panels of this nature, and I sometimes think I'm guilty of it, we have a tendency to act as if y'all don't. Y'all do. We do. What makes us so fucking fabulous as human beings is the charitable impulse is animating us all the time. My impulse is always to say, can you lean in a little bit more? Can you dial it up just a smidge more? And maybe even more to the point, have you found your volunteeristic bliss? I started an organization called PUSH, People Unwilling to Sit on Their Haunches. And the concept was there's a world full of things that need doing, and sometimes the hard part is it's like speed dating, you know? You gotta find the thing that animates you, that gets you out of bed in the morning, that makes you wanna help. Maybe it's tutoring a kid, maybe it's volunteering at a prison, maybe it's teaching somebody how to write, maybe it's doing amazing things that you've done just as an individual, thinking I'm gonna start my own thing, join a board of directors, work in a soup kitchen. The world is full of things that can use you. And if you've already found your bliss, huzzah. And if you haven't, I would just say within your community, start motherfucking Googling. Because other people are doing stuff, and as wonderful as it is to start your own thing, sometimes what you need is to find other people, your community, who are doing stuff, and join the party. So a lot of what I like to talk about is just what it is to take what you've already got as an impulse and just bop it up a notch. So that's my shtick.
Thank you so much. So inspired by all those hands. Give yourselves a round of applause. That's amazing. Absolutely. I guess I'll talk about why I'm here. So, I mentioned
Also, by the way, one last thing. If you haven't donated to free beers for denobulins, small side charity, you can talk to me after.
Is there a tax receipt for that?
No,
donation?
yes,
Okay,
no, it's on under the radar screen.
Only cash. My name is Matthew. So when I grew up with Star Trek, and because of Star Trek, I wanted to go to space, which I'm sure is 2/3 of the people in this room. I wanted to be an explorer. Star Trek was a huge influence in my life. So was my grandfather, who introduced me to the stars through his tiny telescope when I was knee-high to a grasshopper. When it became clear, like in my probably high school career, that space was probably not going to happen in real life, what I did is I looked for an opportunity to explore, because that's what Star Trek instilled in me, was to explore, but also to do good in the places that you explored. And I figured if I can't explore up, then maybe I can explore out. So the degree that I ended up doing was in international development. And part of that degree was to do a co-op placement overseas. And I ended up for a year working in Sierra Leone, which is a postage stamp-sized country in the Horn of West Africa. It was only 2 years out of a civil conflict. It's called the Blood Diamond War. You might have seen the Leonardo DiCaprio movie. It actually depicts that fairly well. And so the country was in a post-conflict war zone, and it was a mess. And if there's one thing that was really clear to me when I got there, is that I was completely out of my element. I had no business being there, but because I was a white foreign aid worker, and that's how charity sometimes works overseas, is that we can't trust the local folk, it has to be you. But when I was there, I met this incredible woman, local woman, her name's Esther Kanu. She started her own school for vulnerable women and girls in the middle of that war, to make sure that women still had an opportunity to continue their education even in the middle of that conflict. Because if there are people that are hardest hit by conflict, it's women and children in war. And I thought about all the money that had been spent to put me, one foreign aid worker, in the field, could have graduated 50 women from her school. And I'm like, that does not make any sense. So when we got back, we started doing these one-off fundraisers for her. And then in 2011, we founded a Canadian nonprofit organization called Esther's Echo. And since that time, we've helped Esther graduate almost 500 women in Sierra Leone. Thank you. And I'm so excited to talk about this with all of you, because it's the organization itself has no direct connection to Star Trek. But if it weren't for Star Trek, it probably wouldn't exist, because that's the reason why I went abroad. And when in doing the work, part of it was for me, like, I wanted to do well by, I wanted to make proud the inspirations that had come to me. Like, that if I had ever met Gene one day, to be like, this is what I did, because of the show. I wanted to make the world better. I wanted to make it a little bit more like that future. So I've always had a dream to be able to do this kind of work, where we could talk together about how the show has inspired us to do like a real world social change, to bring the Federation now. And I get to now introduce Esther's Echo back to Star Trek, after Star Trek kind of helped to make Esther's Echo. Esther herself does not know what Star Trek is. I've tried to explain to her about the show, and she's like, hey, listen, if people want to help us overseas, then it's cool. So what had happened, this all kind of culminated here, is that I was speaking to a couple people about the organization, and is Amy in the audience? Yeah. Amy's over there. So Amy Imoff, who works with Kate Mulgrew, was like, hey, let's pitch this to Kate, and maybe she'd be interested in tweeting about it. And she did, which was awesome. And then it created this Twitter storm where Robert Duncan McNeil retweeted it. Robert Picardo, who actually said at one point, let's activate the Esther's Echo hologram, the EEH, which when I saw on Twitter was like, oh my God. Gates, Nana Visitor, Brad Spiner, some of the production crew from Prodigy. And this was
I retweeted.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. But this was, for me, as a fan who had been running this project now for 10 years, it was like in a way team had beamed down to help you. You know, like your actual heroes had beamed down to help you. And it was so awesome. So right now, we have sort of, I think, rolling efforts to help the different charities that you've heard about here and projects and stuff. So there's a website that's new. It's called TREKtivism.org. And if you go onto that website right now, the one featured fundraiser is for Esther's Echo. We're trying to raise $10,000, which will keep the school open for another year and graduate another 50 women. And Sierra Leone's in a rough place right now, so that is a really important thing because there's been a conflict on the ground there. We're almost at the halfway mark already, which is awesome.
I'm going to give you $1,000.
Oh, wow. Thank you, John. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And this is a dream. So to be able to chat about this with all of you. So thank you so much for making that possible, and for all of you for being up here.
Hey, can I throw one other thing out, which is just something else that I also kind of like to. I wanted to introduce a woman very briefly named. That doesn't mean to shut you up, Christine. Christina Evans, would you stand up? Christina does some really lovely stuff. She is the chief fundraising officer for a group called Recovery Advocate Network. But she also does this other cool thing, which I really love. For another charitable organization called Best Buddies, she runs their live and silent auction. So I auctioned myself off. Would you please stand up? Would you please stand up, Cindy? Cindy won me. The convention donated 2 tickets. Cindy came out, and now she's going to live with me for the next 17 years, which is pretty cool. But here's the thing. There are charities in your hometown that do live and silent auctions. And you have skills. Maybe you're a gardener. Maybe you're a yoga instructor. Maybe you're a cook. Maybe you're a lap dancer. Probably not a lap dancer. Whatever you are.
Dabo dealer.
What?
Dabo Taylor dealer.
Whatever she is, yes. I didn't quite catch that.
Dabo dealer.
A Dabo dealer. I don't know what that is, but I'm sure it's very exciting. My point being, because sometimes, let's face it, money is tight and this is a tough climate, but what you have are skills. So you could go to any charitable organization you want to support and you could say, you know what I'd like to donate? A day with me teaching you how to Dabo deal. Or a day with me teaching you how to garden. Or a day with me learning how to cook some interesting foreign dish. Or a day doing, or a day doing, or a day doing. Because what we are, it's not our pocketbook, it's our skill sets. And that's what you can bring back into the community, whether you've got a buck or not. So, just want to throw that out.
Yes, thank you so much. Actually, there's another person I see in the audience here who has a really cool thing going down. Rod, do you want to talk about the Roddenberry Foundation? So see you there?
I'll do my own panel later, I guess.
You do your own panel later. Okay. Roddenberry Foundation, also very cool. One of the neat things about the website when you go in there, and it talks about like all the pillars for that Star Trek kind of stands for, that the foundation also stands for. But I was thinking about that actually on this panel. We have hunger, right? When you talk about all like when we talk about the future, what it's going to look like, the actors and the characters always talk about hunger. We've eliminated hunger, we've eliminated homelessness, we've eliminated poverty. Like those are all the things that are going on up here, right? And the access to community and connection as well.
And Rod?
Hi, David.
How are you, Rod?
Long time. Good to see you.
Rod, a personal thank you again for your contribution and the Roddenberry's contribution to Hollywood Food Coalition.
Multiple
And,
contributions.
yes, it's extraordinary what this gentleman has continued his father's legacy, and through the Roddenberry Foundation has made an incredible impact not only on the Hollywood Food Coalition, but so many other organizations. So Rod, thank you.
Thank you, David.
Yes, thank you so much. Oh, go ahead.
I would be remiss, I do not work with the organization, but I would be remiss, we have elections happening all the time in this country and coming up this year. TREKtivism.org. I expect and I challenge everyone in this room to vote, please. But if you want to be a poll worker, then check out TREKtivism.org and get involved with them, spread the word any way you can with that organization. And then I think we have...
Yeah, and then Amy, you want to chat about, well, okay, go ahead, here.
Hi, everybody. Great to see you. Hope everyone comes to Kate's panel in about an hour. Kate works with the Alzheimer's Foundation, and November this year is International Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and we're going to be doing an auction of very cool Janeway things that have been donated by companies. CBS is going to donate an experience. We're going to do a lot of really cool stuff. I have a whole bunch of stuff in my house that Kate has signed from her book tour in 2019 that we didn't get a chance to auction off because of COVID. So I invite you to keep an eye on the TREKtivism homepage that Matthew mentioned, and we're going to have a push in November for Alzheimer's awareness. So thank you so much.
There's a microphone up, so if you got something going on that you want to share and cool projects and stuff, or you have questions for us or anything
Or
like that.
any great ideas you might have.
Mav, we've got a couple minutes, so we can do that, please. Hello, thank you.
Sorry, I'm short. I had to move the mic, I'm so short. Okay. Hi, well, first off, thank you all for being here and for everything that you all have been doing for your various communities. My question, so I've been working in nonprofit theater for a while and just kind of in the nonprofit circle in general. And my question has to do with, there is an issue in the nonprofit industry of the staff not receiving living wages. And a lot of it has to do with the overhead myth, the myth that, every single cent must go to, blah, blah, blah. And no, I don't want to be paying for someone's salary, but how do you then, you got to get the work done, right? So my question to all of you, anyone feel free to jump in and answer, is what would you say to, say, a potential donor or volunteer, to help them to understand the importance of the work that the staff at these nonprofits do, and that they, while they're doing all this amazing work, they are still living in our kind of, white supremacist, heterosis, patriarchy, capitalist structure and need to make a living, right? So what would you say to that?
I want to have a response to that. One, of course, you pay the wage. That's up to not-for-profit. In terms of how you speak to your donors, first off, make your programs accessible to your donors and make sure that the donors meet the staff. Because to me, there is no better way to get people who are donating money to understand the importance of staff than to meet the staff that are being paid for. So I'd start with that. And I think anything you can do as a not-for-profit to say, we want you to meet the people that make this work possible. We want to have a party. We want to have a get-together. I'm a huge believer in parties. I think the more parties a not-for-profit throws, the better. So if you've got somebody that you can delegate as a volunteer to be your professional party goer, invite the staff, invite your donors. Invite the staff, invite your donors. They'll fall in love with each other.
That's great.
Go ahead.
Right, so I work for one of the largest nonprofits in the United States, and it's in 122 countries, and what you're saying is 100% correct. You also have to have committees of the board and of the organization that the staff run, so that your donors get to meet them and they become attached to them, and they say things like, you would be dead in the water if you didn't have Becky doing your fundraising. You need that person there. You must act like a professional business. And there was a YouTube video. Remember I think it was the Komen Foundation that had the expose on their expense for fundraising, and it was horribly wrong. Horribly wrong. It's a YouTube video, and I can't remember the name of it right now. But basically, what they were doing was running very costly, high-cost getaways, races, things like that very rich people were paying a lot of money for. But 70% of the money went to the cost of the thing. But that's how they got these high-ticket donations. The other 30% went to the charity. And when this expose was done, we in this country said, oh, we can't have that. We can't have this high overhead sort of stuff. The donations, and I'm going to get this completely wrong, but proportionally it's correct. The donations went to research cancer from like $20 million to $2 million in 1 year because they abandoned that. It's about the size of the pie. It is about the size of it, and don't be afraid to have overhead when you can bring that in, because those donors were saying, yes, I'll go to New York City and I'll stay at, what was Eloise's hotel?
The Plaza.
The Plaza. I will stay at the Plaza and I'll do this race and we'll see a Broadway show and I will pay $10,000 for it.
Can I throw one other thing out? One of the things that I think is really important is finding a way to thank your donors. One of the hardest things, as I'm sure you know, for a not-for-profit is donor retention, particularly smaller donors. If you could enlist staff and board members to thank people on a consistent basis, either via text or via phone call or via a small personal handwritten note, and I'm assuming you're a smaller not-for-profit, I think a lot of it is the building of the relationship with the donors is an institutional obligation that encompasses both staff, board, and volunteers.
Thankathon. Every Thanksgiving we have a thankathon where the whole board just calls, all they do is, hey, thanks so much for your donation. Not asking for anything, just thank you.
And the last thing I'd say on that is there's a great book about this called Uncharitable. It's written by a guy named Dan Pelota. And he's the one who first criticizes this idea that there's, I think that number that they stuck in everyone's head was 10% overhead cost, but that number's like imaginary, comes from nowhere. There's a couple other really good points in there. So I would direct people to that book as well. It's really good. Yeah.
Thank you all for your answers, and I wish more boards thought like y'all do.
Thank you.
It ain't easy.
Hello.
Hi, it's so great to see all of you. My question is for John and David. I love your work, first of all. But my question is, how is it like being able to reminisce and catch up with Connor and Dominic about the projects that you were doing, such as the Homeless Photography Project or the Hollywood Food Coalition on Shuttlepod?
The gentlemen have a podcast, which I don't know if David's appeared on, I've appeared on. I tell you, I will go to the opening of an envelope to talk about the Hollywood Food Coalition. As many of you here know, which I think is the other thing that I think is vitally important if you are involved in a charitable organization. Whatever part of you is shy, kill it. You know? Because it is about spread the word, spread the word. So the boys know that Turnabout is fair play. I'm here and I'm going to gab about my thing, and I want you guys to come to this and come to that and yada yada yada. And in fact, if you want to come up afterwards, we are having a small little cocktail party tonight to celebrate Trek Talks 2. Can't accommodate everybody in the room. Come up and talk to me if you might be interested in learning more. We can accommodate some, kind of first come, first served. Come and tell me if you're interested. So much of what Star Trek is this amazing community. And I want to kind of wrangle them all like goddamn cats. It's like, come on, you know? So, yeah, whether Dominic and Connor now run when they see me, but that's, I'm swifter than they are. So
Your episode was great. I loved it so much. I watched like all of the Shuttlepod episodes within a couple to a few weeks to prepare for today. So I was really excited.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think we got time for at least... sorry, go ahead.
I asked for David as
Oh,
well.
yeah, sorry.
David who?
Oh, Livingston. It was, how was it like reminiscing on Shuttlepod and talking about the projects that you've been doing?
Talking about what?
The projects that you've been doing, like the homeless.
Yeah, I had a great time with the guys. When I worked with them on Enterprise, it was always a kick. Shuttlepod 1 was one of my favorite episodes, which they then have as the name of their podcast. Yeah, I did a photography exhibit on the homeless, which is how I met John and became involved with Hollywood Food Coalition. And it was great to talk about that project and my passion for trying to show those who looked at my photographs that the homeless are just like us. They're real people. And so many times we turn a blind eye when we're walking down the street and we just see them as objects. And my goal was for myself, first of all, to see them as human beings, and then to try and translate that through the camera to show other people that they're human beings, because so many times we forget that.
Thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you. We are almost out of time, so what we're going to do, I'd say if there's people with questions, stick around, because I'm sure we'd be happy to talk about them. Let's do a quick round through. So Hollywood Food Coalition, check it out.
Hofoco.org. HOFOCO.org.
Pop Culture Hero Coalition, right? Oh, sorry, David, go
No,
ahead.
I was just going to say, and anybody who wants, I have my business cards from Hofoco. It has the information on it. You can make a contribution if you want, but it also has my email, and anytime you want to ask me any questions or anything, please feel free to communicate.
Heather, where do we find you online?
Hands Give Back is the name of the program that I have, and I have a Twitter for it. I don't try to be too crazy about it. I keep it small since it's me.
Great. And then TREKtivism.org, if you want to help out with Esther's Echo, we would super appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone. I was afraid that we wouldn't have as many people as we do. I really appreciate it. Let's go change the world! Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Albert. Albert Ortega, legendary photographer.